We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else. As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo here with Sam Monson with a hat.
A free hat.
A free hat?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from?
A very kind listener sent it in to us. I got a little message, actually on Monday when we were sitting in here, from Susie, who sits at the front desk there, saying, I had a package. Could I come and collect it? Went and collect it, and somebody sent me a hat.
Nice.
There was a little gift note within it. Keep that noggin toggin.
Yeah.
Try this for the podcast
like our
to
friends
cut down on the glare. You guys are great. Keep it up. From Julie Hayes. So somebody sent me a hat just because I'm bald.
Yeah, it looks good.
Not 100% sure how I should feel about that.
I feel like you should be maybe carrying around a couple newspapers with the daily update here.
I mean, it's a nice thought.
Extra, read all about it.
It's also a little bit, here's a hat to help your bald.
Yeah. I mean, it helps.
Sure.
Glare. Where's the glare off the hat? I don't see it.
It's true. This is
we
no glare.
We haven't had to change any of the lighting. We just changed the hat.
15 lights or 14. Did one fall down, I heard the other day?
One fell?
Apparently.
When Hutch was in here.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Would have been really unfortunate if we'd taken out Hutch with a light.
Could you imagine? We're never going to get a podcast again if we had a light.
Anyway, so 15 or 14
Hutch.
lights. You can't tell because I got a hat on now. No shiny head.
It's great. It's good for our listeners. So are we rocking this every show now? Or is this just...
So thank you, Julie. I don't know if we're rocking it every show, but I figure it's only polite if somebody sends you a hat to wear the hat for a show.
So it's an acknowledgement at least.
Yeah. After that, we'll see where we go.
All right. Well, we're going to have a great show here today because it's going to be a tight one, right? We're going to be in and out. It's our Wednesday show. But we have some emails that we were going to discuss. But first off, obviously, the Tyreek Hill news. This thing might break live here on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of breaking.
It is breaking. This has been happening all day here. Tyreek Hill requested a trade. He has the permission to request a trade.
He has the permission to request a trade?
Yes.
To
seek a trade.
Okay.
Sorry, to seek a trade.
So that feels like an extra step.
You can always request a trade. Oh, my gosh.
It feels like I don't need that step.
Good speaking here today.
Yes, you may request a trade.
Yeah.
Okay, I request a trade. Oh, well, let me see about that.
I mean, listen, we've all been there before. Sometimes you just hit a point with whatever team you're playing for that you're done. You're ready to request a trade. And that's where Tyreek Hill is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've done that before.
You have?
Have you done that?
No.
Yeah. I mean, back in 2004, I strong-armed the Florence Freedom to trade me to the Worcester Tornadoes.
You strong-armed.
Yeah. Forced a trade. Forced my way right out of town. And look at this. Now I'm back in town, 20 minutes away from Florence.
There was an email that we got sent. I don't think I saved it to read out, but it was some guy talking about how loves the podcast, except when Steve talks about baseball, and then he turns it off, quietly goes and bangs his head into a wall repeatedly. Yes. See, it really feels like
where's your
satchel? Escalation. We talk about a pattern of behavior, and somewhere along the line you cross a line, right? It feels like this is a pattern of behavior now, that I'm being bullied and victimized on my own podcast, and our HR department hasn't done shit. We're sitting here, I'm getting attacked from the booth, and nothing.
As much as I want to see you in the satchel selling the newspapers, here's what the evening news is going to say, that you're going to be selling to the people here, Sam. The trade is official per Adam Schefter, not a darn Schefter. It's Adam.
Okay, good Good check.
He's got the blue check. It looks like a half blue check.
No, you can't
though.
tell. You have to actually read the letters. The blue check doesn't tell you anything. They fake that.
Adam Schefter. Chiefs are trading 6-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins for 5 draft picks. It's going to be a 2022 first rounder, that's number 29 overall.
Okay.
A second rounder, that's number 50. A 4th round pick, as well as a 4th and a 6th in 2023. Sources tell ESPN. There were rumors that maybe the Dolphins would have to include players. And we saw people say, hey, well, let's hope Jalen Waddle's not a part of it. Let's see Waddle and Tyreek together. And let's see, is Christian Wilkins going to be involved? Is Xavier Howard going to be involved? But no, the Dolphins keep all their players, but it's a 1st, a 2nd, a 4th, and then a 2023 4th and a 6th. Tyreek Hill moving on to the Miami Dolphins. The Chiefs getting all that draft capital back, and I don't know, where do you want to start here, man? How did this come about? Because I've got some takes based off of last offseason and how the Chiefs have gotten here. How do you think we've gotten to this point with Tyreek moving on now to the Dolphins?
I mean, my first reaction is I think this is a mistake for Kansas City. In this world, this offseason has been an arms race. All these NFL teams are loading up. They're creating these super teams. They are all amassing talent left, right, and center, particularly in that division. The AFC West has been the most aggressive division in the entire NFL in terms of assembling talent, getting teams together that can challenge the Chiefs. So Kansas City's response to that is to volunteer to get worse and ship off a unique player. See, I have always been of the opinion. Now, people are shaped by their environment, and I was sitting there when the Vikings decided that it's time, right? We're done with Randy Moss. It's time to cash in. And this is one event too far. That man pretended to moon the crowd, and Joe Buck didn't like it. So now we got to trade him away, and we're done with him, right? You traded away Randy Moss, and you got a 7 overall. You got some other stuff, and you used the 7 overall on Troy Williamson, and it was the worst trade, one of the worst trades ever. You don't trade away players that are that talented and that unique, that different, and that game-changing ever. Don't do it. Same with the Rams, right? Never, ever trade Aaron Donald. Don't do it. Ride him until the wheels fall off and then move on and be thankful that you got the degree of play you got from him. Tyreek Hill is unique. There is nobody in the NFL that has his combination of acceleration, quickness, and speed all together at the same time, which makes him uncoverable. He will break open in a step, and then there isn't a cornerback in the NFL that can get that step back if he keeps running. And that is game-changing. It's completely unique. There's nobody else that can do it, and you have that, which means you have a guy that can get open every single play. And when you have Patrick Mahomes out there extending plays, that is more valuable than ever before. Don't trade that guy away. I understand he wants a new contract. That's getting more expensive than ever, given DeAndre Hopkins, given Devontae Adams, given Christian Kirk. But I don't care. Figure out a way of making it happen, right? You've got bigger problems, bigger people dragging your salary cap down than Tyreek Hill, who deserves to be paid that amount of money in terms of what he does on the field. Figure it out.
I want to describe what I think also, part of what makes Tyreek Hill unique, why he is that unicorn at the position. But first, a reminder that the PFF NFL Podcast is sponsored by the Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow? Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance investment and retirement solutions help you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. I was thinking about Tyreek Hill and his value, and we may have gotten into a couple discussions at the Combine about Tyreek Hill and his usage patterns and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You've made the point, though, where it's like, remember, I think it was about like comparing him to, say, Cole Beasley. Could Tyreek Hill do it? He could do what Cole Beasley can do. I think he could do what Devontae Adams can do. And he could also do what Randy Moss could do as the top deep threat in the NFL, we'll say, right? So when you have Tyreek Hill on your team, I think you can legitimately choose what you want. Do you want to have a 120-plus reception slot receiver who's, going to work the short area game and be dynamic after the catch? Do you want to put him as an outside receiver and run the short and intermediate route tree with the occasional deep ball, say like a Devontae Adams, and then just be a red zone weapon? Because the most important thing in the red zone isn't size, it's just getting open, and Tyreek Hill's great at that. Or do you want to actually cut down on volume and have him average 18 to 20 yards per catch per year and just literally take the top off the defense, run him deep, and if in the second a team doesn't account for him, he's getting the ball. I don't know. Randy Moss is great. I mean, we had the big
breaking news.
Right? We had the big debate last year. Our guy Anthony Tresh was like, Tyreek Hill's the best deep threat in NFL history. And it was like, hey, little Anthony, you forgot about Randy. You forgot about other guys. But Randy Moss, remember the Randy ratio. The Vikings were like, hey, 1 year, let's get the ball in Randy Moss's hands. Short, intermediate, let's just get the ball in his hands. That's not Randy's game, though. Randy was the best deep threat in NFL history. But Tyreek Hill can legitimately do any of those three things. High volume slot receiver, high volume outside receiver, legitimate deep threat, combination of all, whatever you want. That's why there's no other receiver like him. As you mentioned, when he gets a step, it's over. And I think this is going to be a huge issue for the Chiefs. I want to start from the Chiefs angle here. We said it last year. I mean, go back. We got to go replay at when they traded for Orlando Brown, when they made Joe Thuney the highest paid guard in NFL history. That's what changed everything. Right? It's not there. The offensive line is not breaking the bank right now for the Chiefs, but it's going to. Joe Thuney's cap hits for the next 3 years, 2023 and on, are $22+ million. If they re-sign Orlando Brown, who's making franchise tag, 18, 19 million this year? If they re-sign Orlando Brown, he's in the $17 to $20 million range next year. Those are the Chris Jones. But the offensive line decisions are a huge part of the reason why they're here and unable to meet Tyreek Hill's asking price.
I don't think they're unable to. I think they're unwilling to. Like, you showed me all these cap hits for next year and beyond, but that's before restructuring takes place. And I was all set before this Tyreek Hill rumor started, let alone the trade started, to start talking about a little bit today about how the further on we go, that Patrick Mahomes contract is starting to look like the biggest heist in NFL history from the team point of view. Now, look, you can look at it and say, hey, Patrick Mahomes at some point is going to pocket $500 million. He's doing pretty well, right? It's not like he's getting screwed out of this. There was a mutual agreement that, hey, if I can get $500 million over the next 10 years, I'll do you a solid, right? And I'll take the lower deal and not maximize every penny I could get. And collectively, we'll be able to build the best team around me, and I can create a Tom Brady-esque dynasty, right? As distinct from, say, Aaron Rodgers, who's out here going, yeah, I'll come back, but you're going to have to give me, $200 million to do it for the next couple of years. So if you look at the deals, they can restructure that Mahomes deal essentially every year and free up an absolute boatload of salary cap space. The offensive line is not yet causing them kind of problems because you've got those two guys in the rookie contract. They have plenty of ability to absorb this kind of contract. They have just determined that they don't want to do it. And if they don't want to do it, now's the time you cash in because he still has some of this contract left. He's still got enough to make him valuable.
There's a difference between getting the money under the cap and getting the money under the cap, because everybody goes, right, like our friend Eric says, everybody's cap compliant, right? This is about the flexibility here. It's about the fact that, because somebody in my mention said, well, at least the Bengals didn't take that approach this year. The Bengals this year got two starting guards, or a starting center and a guard, for the price of one Joe Thuney, right? That's why it's a good move, because the Bengals didn't overinvest in the offensive line. So this isn't about fitting everything. It's not about manipulating the cap to be compliant.
But the Chiefs have the Chiefs have essentially 4 starting players for the price of one Joe Thuney. Because you add in the guys on the rookie deals, it's only adding another million.
Because the draft picks matter too, right? So last year, what did the Chiefs invest in the offensive line? A first round pick in the Orlando Brown trade. Let's say all the other picks were a wash. Second round pick to get Creed Humphrey. And I'm not saying the Creed Humphrey, the draft pick's great, right? In isolation. I'm saying when in the totality of Chiefs offensive line investment, first round pick, second round pick, Orlando Brown this year's franchise tag, Orlando Brown's future contract, Joe Thuney highest paid guard. The Trey Smith's great. That's you get a beautiful 6th round starting guard. Okay, awesome. All of that stuff. When you put that much investment in the offensive line in one offseason, you start playing whack-a-mole with the rest of the roster. Now they don't have a defensive line to go with Chris Jones. Still. They don't have any corners. They don't have receivers now, all of a sudden, right? When the goal should have been...
Only because you're about to trade one of them away. You keep Tyreek Hill, all of a sudden you've got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Juju, Mecole Hardman, they've a couple of long shots, and the draft to come. So just don't trade him away. Simple, fixed.
Right, but you still have the same holes on the other roster. And
with the draft coming up.
Okay. Yeah, but you traded away your surest thing, which is the guy, Tyreek Hill, who, as I reminded people today on Twitter, led Alex Smith, the most conservative quarterback of our generation, to lead the league in deep passing yards in 2017.
You seem to be under the impression that this is being forced upon them when it isn't. They've got the ability. They don't have to do this right now. They're electing to do this.
No, I think they're looking at they're looking across their roster landscape and saying, we have so much else we need to fix that we have to do it through the draft. And they're going to get all these draft picks, and there's going to be an influx of youth in Kansas City. Fine.
But again, they already have a ton of draft picks. It's not like they've traded everything away and they need to assemble a draft in order to attack these other holes. If you keep Tyreek Hill, you all of a sudden don't need to throw a ton of resources at the offense because your offensive line is great and intact. Your quarterback is set. Your receiving core is set. Maybe you can add somebody, but one pick. Then you can throw all those draft picks at defense. So you only create this problem by trading away the guy in the first place.
Which I still think that they did because they feel like they have so many holes that they need to fill. More than anything. And didn't want to pay him the money.
That's the key.
And in part because they have so much invested. They're going to have $40 million plus invested in the left side of their offensive line next year and beyond. No matter how you work the cap and move the money around, they're going to have over $40 million invested in a left tackle and a left guard. And the reality of the situation is the Chiefs just had their best offensive line this past year of the Mahomes era and scored fewer points than ever of the Mahomes era, right? All I'm saying is they overreacted to the Super Bowl loss against the Bucs, decided over our dead bodies, you're never going to have an offensive line like that again. They overinvested in the offensive line last year. They're now playing whack-a-mole with the rest of the roster. And because of that, they just traded away their best trump card, which is Tyreek Hill. And it's an even better trump card when you add him to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, because those three are unstoppable. And the goal should have been just be good enough on the offensive line. Don't have to be great. Just be good enough and kill it on the perimeter and get more Tyreek Hill plus Travis Kelce insurance, because that's going to be the way we win in Kansas City. And now they've taken a huge step back, but they're still sitting here with this great offensive line, which, again, doesn't lead to points.
I think you've manufactured a problem that isn't there. Like, they have a great offensive line that is costing them very little. Like, they're spending on the offensive line, even with all of it being tied up in left guard and left tackle, is still small relative to everybody else in the NFL, because you got three starters that are getting paid nothing. Now, okay, down the line at some point the dynamic there is going to change, but that shouldn't be enforcing you right now trading away Tyreek Hill. Yes, they invested in terms of draft picks in it as well, but only really 3 of them, and you still have the entire draft upcoming now to address defense with 0 holes on offense. So you can have an entire draft being spent on defense like the Panthers did a couple of years ago. This, like, the offensive line that they assembled last offseason, I think was necessary, right? The Mitchell Schwartz being injured, Eric Fisher being injured, they couldn't just roll into next year with the same group. It wasn't possible. So that whole overhaul was enforced upon them, and I don't think it's having, like, multi-year ramifications that's causing, like, that's not the first domino in that meme with the giant thing falling being Tyreek Hill traded away to Miami. Like, that didn't start this. They have just decided that, okay, Tyreek Hill wants more money. The wide receiver market has gone batshit because of all these weird contracts from nowhere. Nuke Hopkins, Devontae Adams. Like, if the meme, that's the start. That's the first domino, is Bill O'Brien being like, you know what? Get rid of him. Yeah, sure. Bring in the running back in his contract. That's a good trade. That's your first domino. And now this is the one that's toppling Tyreek Hill to Miami.
Yeah, and
that started the weird contracts, and they just don't want to go to market value for Tyreek Hill.
I'm just saying, I mean, we're saying a lot of the same things. I'm still saying, if Joe Thuney's going to be making $23 million a year, I would rather invest more millions per year in Tyreek Hill and get a guard for half the price.
Yeah, but I just don't think it's an either-or thing. I think you can do both.
No, I think it is.
It isn't, though. Look at the money.
You're going to lose flexibility from a roster building standpoint.
At some point,
you can't just pay everybody $22 to $30 million
Correct.
a year.
I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about playing 3 players that. Patrick Mahomes and his giant-ass contract, and then Joe Tooney and...
Chris Jones is making 29.
Okay. So, but my point is, look at the numbers. They can free up. A couple of weeks ago, they could free up $100 million, like a space of $100 million in salary cap space. They have plenty of capacity to not just get cap compliant, but get a ton of extra space on the salary cap. They're not in a position.
You don't want to push everything that far down the road because the goal for the Chiefs is to build a dynasty and win championships along the way.
Okay, but what I'm saying is they're not just like, they're not so tied up against the cap that their moves of restructuring get them compliant. They have plenty of capacity to move money around and free up space to the point where Joe Tooney's contract is not preventing them re-signing Tyreek Hill long term.
I want to get to the Dolphins angle here, but first, don't forget Manscaped launched their Ultra Premium Collection. That's right, Manscaped added again. It's for your not so private parts, Sam. We're talking about a leveled up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. It's an all-in-one skin and hair care kit for the everyday man. Covers you head to toe. Literally, Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF. Here's your order of operation. You hop in the shower, scrub-a-dub-dub that body with the Manscaped body wash, lather your hair up with the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, keep your noggin toggin. As who sent that to you? Is it Julie? Julie sent it to you. She reminded you. Mm-hmm. Keep the noggin toggin here, Sam. Number 3, dry off and spray on the hydrating body moisturizer to reinvigorate dry skin. Put on the Manscaped deodorant for obvious reasons, and then pop on that Manscaped lip balm. No one's out here kissing those chapped lips. Luckily, if you're working from home, getting dressed is optional. Wear one great scent all day long. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. It's 20% off plus free shipping. Code's PFF at manscaped.com. Power of attraction is now in a bottle thanks to Manscaped. So where do you think the Chiefs go from here? Do you think this is a full, we'll get to the Dolphins. Is this a full, we're building this team through the draft? Or are there other moves to be made here with all the draft picks that the Chiefs have? Tyler Lockett for for half the price of what you'd pay a Tyreek Hill, potentially available with the Seahawks. Do you try to get a DK Metcalf in here from the Seahawks? Are people calling Seattle saying, hey, you guys don't have a quarterback, you're rebuilding, give us some of your assets here? Are there other moves to be made here? Because again, here's the bottom line, Sam. If I'm the Chiefs, the same aggressiveness that they had last year in making sure that they never saw an offensive line as bad as they saw in the Super Bowl for Patrick Mahomes, I would use that same aggression to say I never want to see Patrick Mahomes without an elite set of playmakers. Not because he can't do it or not because he's not an elite quarterback himself, but because that's what makes us special. That's what makes the Chiefs special, is the fact that Tyreek Hill completely changed the way defenses have to cover you. Travis Kelce, too. 2 Hall of Fame caliber players. We've never seen Mahomes without that. Someday we will, right? Maybe it's this year. But I never want to see them without a top 3, top 4 group of playmakers. And I think the Chiefs' goal should always be to ensure that that's the case. And today, they took a step back rather than a step forward in that. Mm-hmm. So where do they go from here? Because I think they need to use the same aggressiveness in ensuring that their perimeter players, that their playmakers are top-notch, the same way they did with their offensive line last year.
I mean, anything you do from a veteran standpoint to me is terrible. Just keep the guy. Don't trade him away if you're going to try and replace him with a slightly cheaper veteran option, because there's nobody else that comes close to what he does for you on the field. So if you're going to try this approach, you just got a boatload of draft picks, try and find a replacement in the draft. That's your only solution if you're Kansas City to me. Your receiving core right now is Travis Kelce, still the most important part of that. And then it's ugly because you get Juju Smith-Schuster, you get Mecole Hardman, you get the guys that weren't good enough when you had to go beyond Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So the price that receivers are getting on the open market right now makes it nuts to go after anybody else from a veteran standpoint to me, because if you're doing this, it's to save money. Otherwise, you just re-up Tyreek Hill and give him whatever money he wants because he's that good. So it's crazy to me if you're to try and repair the crack that you just created by going to a different veteran option.
So they're going to go into the season with, I don't know, who's going to be around? Sky Moore in the first round?
Chris Olave or somebody like that.
Chris Olave going to be around late first round where the Chiefs are picking twice?
Maybe.
Because they now have, pick 29 and is it 30? 29 and 30 back-to-back now for the Chiefs?
Possibly.
Huge holes on the defensive line. Question marks at corner. I know they're not done. You're not done from a team-building standpoint, but, man, what's going to happen with that offense? I mean, you have Green Bay's picking ahead of them, desperate for receivers. It's fascinating, man. You have Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes both losing their elite receivers because the team did not want to pay them record-breaking money. And I would say, even though, Kansas City won one Super Bowl, Packers haven't won a Super Bowl with Devontae Adams or whatever, but those combinations, there's no bigger force multiplier in the NFL other than quarterback than the uncoverable wide receiver one. There's just not. Doesn't mean it's going to work every time, but there's no bigger force multiplier than Julio in his prime, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill right now, in two teams with elite quarterbacks, and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes got rid of these guys and didn't want to pay them. And that is fascinating to me. And we'll see. It doesn't mean it's never going to work or anything like that, but that's a choice. It's a choice that the Chiefs have made while the rest of the AFC West we're calling it the arms race, and everybody's trying to keep up with the Chiefs. And I think today the Chiefs actively got worse for this year. Again, it doesn't mean that we talk about these moves all the time. You still have Mahomes, you still have Kelsey, you have all those draft picks. Sure, you could hit on those draft picks and it changes everything and you have more financial flexibility. But for right now, the Chiefs got worse.
Yeah.
For this year and next. And they've got some work to do to get back on track here. So Josh Gordon, Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, the top three receivers right now for the Chiefs.
Don't forget Corey Coleman just re-signed.
Corey Coleman just did re-sign, and for your Corey Coleman truthers from years ago, this could be the fit for Corey Coleman.
Still time, Gordon, you and me.
All right, I'm sorry, Dolphins fans. I'm sorry that we spent that much time on the Chiefs. I don't know if we're going to get to the emails or not, but let's go from the Dolphins' perspective here. You now have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. You have Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker. I mean, this is now probably the best group of playmakers in the NFL instantly because of what we said Tyreek Hill can do.
Well, the first thing is, do they have any idea how to incorporate Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill into the same offense? Because Jalen Waddle is the closest thing that the NFL has to Tyreek Hill. I think there's still a world of difference between the two and a world of unknown in terms of that difference is a world of unknown. But now you have two players that look very similar in terms of skill set. So what's the plan? And remember, this is not just any normal offense. This is a Shanahan type of offense that has had a history of having unconventional deployment of receiving weapons and where they value the skill and all those kinds of things. So it was already going to be kind of intriguing to see, was Jalen Waddle going to be their version of Deebo Samuel? Well, now what happens? Now you've got Tyreek Hill. How does that go together? Because even in San Francisco, George Kittle is effectively underused in that offense. And you can tell that because anytime Deebo Samuel gets hurt or is missing or isn't playing, George Kittle goes off for 200 yards. But he just doesn't get those opportunities when Deebo is there because he's the high-volume guy. He's the one who the offense is rolling through. So is Mike McDaniel capable of crafting an offense that maximizes the skill set of both those guys?
What would you do with Tyreek Hill? I mean, as I described earlier, if you wanted his stats to look like prime Randy Moss, prime Devontae Adams, or prime Wes Welker, say, right? I'm literally taking the best of all of those guys, outside receiver, a slot receiver, and a deep threat. You could do that. You could deploy Tyreek Hill in any of those roles. What would you do with him?
I mean, I would use all three. There's no reason he can't just be.
Do all of them?
Yeah. Well, why can't he be at the same time the best deep threat in the NFL, a high volume underneath threat, and anything else you need him to be? Why do you need to? The only reason that those guys are typically segmented into that is because of limitations with their skill set, right? Wes Welker wasn't the archetype Wes Welker because he was a great deep threat guy as well, and they just decided, you know what, this is where he fits in this offense. It's Wes Welker is a stumpy little white guy who couldn't run deep. So, that's why he was in that role. Tyreek Hill can do that, and he can do all the other stuff as well, so maximize it.
I mean, there were times, remember watching Alabama film last year before the draft where Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs were running on the same side?
Yeah.
And they'd both be open, but Devontae Smith would get the ball or whatever it was.
And they're also running like route combinations that don't exist anywhere else.
From 2019, Ruggs came out a year earlier, but the speed that Ruggs and Waddle brought to the table, you now have that same thing with Hill and Waddle.
But because of that, they're running like route concepts that don't exist anywhere else. Like they're running these crossing these crossing combinations that happen 15 yards downfield. It's like, well, nobody else can do that. Like, nobody else has the speed for that to mesh 15 yards downfield and it'd still be a viable play.
Where I wouldn't use Tyreek Hill on the gimmicky type of plays. Hill's the history of Tyreek Hill in this league in 2016 when he came in with the Chiefs, it was kind of like, he was a running back at times in college and all this stuff. They were using him on jet sweeps and all that stuff, and he's a weapon with those things. I would leave those to Waddle at the moment. For Hill, remember when you watching Michael Vick where he would run around so much? He'd have like a 40-yard run and then be like exhausted for a couple plays. It looked like he couldn't even walk after just how much energy he exerted. I would save Tyreek Hill for the deep stuff. I mean, I would put him in the slot, let him be that over route that the Shanahan offense runs so well. The deep stuff, I would save his energy for that. And then, like the Chiefs did on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, it's like, hey, just go run a little option route. Just get open because nobody can cover you because your quickness is insane. But I'd let Waddle run more of the gimmicky and underneath stuff. Let Tyreek run the deep stuff and then run combinations where they're both going to be deep threats there. So much flexibility.
Schefter adding a layer of this that Tyreek Hill is now going to get a new contract, making the NFL's newest, highest-paid wide receiver 1 week after Devontae Adams set the mark.
Yeah.
So that's
the wide receiver arms race.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? People talk all the time about you're not trading players, you're trading contracts. Kansas City didn't want to go to this deal. Like it's genuinely the start of the dominoes is Bill O'Brien screwing up the wide receiver market by trading away Hopkins and that deal getting sent to the moon. And since then, everybody who's had a wide receiver whose deal is coming up has been caused problems by that contract.
You now have also left tackle Terron Armstead signed this week with the Miami Dolphins. So, the biggest question for the Dolphins this offseason was their offensive line. So Terron Armstead comes in at left tackle. Connor Williams comes in at left guard. So you shore up a couple of those spots. You have all the other young guys that they've added over the last couple of years to kind of fill in the rest of that offensive line. That has taken a step forward for sure. So I think that's a huge help. And Armstead's another big name that they've added to the group here.
Yeah. Is
Devontae Parker now more expendable? Because I would say, Parker's really good. I thought he was a better fit for the way Ryan Fitzpatrick played football, which was, YOLO it up to the big, tall receiver who can go get it. Tua does that a little bit less. Teddy Bridgewater, if he starts, does that a little bit less as well. And remember, there was a question to Teddy in his press conference. Did they say you were the backup? He said, I'd rather not say. So Teddy's being coy about who the actual starter is going to be in Miami. But Devontae Parker could be on the trading block, and that might be a wise move for Miami to maybe get back some of the draft capital that they gave up in this particular instance here, and might save some money there for also all the money that they're going to be paying Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I think he's certainly expendable in this. Remember, they just signed Cedric Wilson in free agency as well to a deal that it's not backbreaking or anything, but it was substantial. It's not nothing.
Yeah, if Cedric Wilson's your 3 instead of Devontae Parker, I think you're okay. Now, look, you know me. Go 3 and 4 deep at receiver, make it so difficult for opposing offenses to cover. There's a world where you keep all these guys and you just figure it out. Who cares if Devontae Parker only catches 50 passes? You make him a good 50. You'd be a part of this awesome squad here. So from a playmaker standpoint, whether Devontae Parker's there or not, it's the best in the league now, right? Mike Gesicki's basically another wide receiver, probably a top 5 or 6 caliber receiving tight ends the way he's played. Offensive line's better. So now we get to Tua. What are we going to learn from Tua now?
Well, we're going to learn if he can be a quarterback. That's the bottom line here. Now, the interesting part is, look, Terron Armstead is a great deal and cheap as well. So I think you have to conclude from that the teams are a little bit scared by his injury history, which is substantial. I don't think he's ever played 1,000 snaps in a season, which is like standard, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting a discount for the fact that Terron Armstead will probably miss some time because he seems to every single year. They also add Connor Williams in free agency. That's a great move. Even if Connor Williams isn't the best guard in the world, he's a massive upgrade over what you had. Robert Hunt is the one incumbent that you think, yeah, he's pretty good. So 3/5 of your offensive line are in good shape, but that still leaves you with 2 that are not. Miami had an offensive line where they genuinely needed 4 new starters this offseason, maybe 5. They've got 2, which is great. It's massive steps along the way, but they shouldn't be done yet, right? Now the draft is still upcoming. There's still a bunch of free agents out there that are available for not much money and would be worth throwing a look at if you're Miami. My point simply being that you can get away with 1 weak link on the offensive line. You can't really get away with 2. So as much as Tyreek Hill, great. Terron Armstead, great. Connor Williams, great. Upcoming draft, fantastic. You still need to fix those 2 spots because you had the worst offensive line in the NFL and a historically bad one. And those both need to go away if the quarterback, whoever it is, Tua or Teddy, Tua.
It's Tua.
Is going to have any chance, right? If you want to find out if Tua can be a viable, functional NFL quarterback or a good one, you need to give him a decent offensive line and then let him try and throw to these receivers.
The other thing about the offensive line, though, maybe the McDaniels system, the Shanahan system, is going to help a little bit with all the misdirection that they like to do. Remember, the Shanahan run game has evolved a ton in recent years. It's not just outside zone a million times. They're running power. They're running counter. They're running gap schemes. They added the jet sweep game in again because what you're trying to do with the run game is to just always win the numbers game, but also the angles game that they always talk about in the Shanahan system. So I think the line was going to get better anyway. And when you're trying to fill those couple spots, like you're hoping it's at the moment a Michael Dieter. Robert Hunt I think will be fine. You're hoping to get maybe something out of Austin Jackson or better play from Jesse Davis or whatever's on the roster at the moment. It's not impossible for one of those guys to improve enough to be reasonable with the other additions, elevating the line enough that they're in good shape. The other thing about the Niners, remember when the Niners and Chiefs went to the Super Bowl? They were the 2 fastest teams in the NFL using GPS or tracking or whatever it is. You also have Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert added to this offense, right? Mostert is a legit 4-3 guy. Edmonds has some explosiveness to him, to his game at running back, and no offense puts running backs in space better than the Shanahan scheme. There is a ton to like about everything that they've accumulated in Miami. Now, as our friend Louis Riddick says out on Twitter, it's about how do you fit these pieces in? As Sam also said, how do you fit these pieces in? It's a fair question because on paper, playmakers galore. It's on Mike McDaniel right now to make it all work.
Yeah. The flip side of, look, I hate the move from Kansas City's perspective, so automatically I love it from Miami's perspective. Now, I think there's still a question of how you fit all these pieces together, but hell, if you can acquire a genuinely unique weapon in the NFL, you do it because you're not supposed to trade those guys away. So if somebody's willing to trade them to you, hell yeah.
Even if they don't do anything special and you just run football plays, like Tyreek Hill's better at running football plays, and it takes pressure. Jalen Waddle, it takes pressure off him. He doesn't have to be a high-volume number 1, right? So part of maybe your hesitancy with Jalen Waddle at 6 last year is when you're picking for a true number 1 wide receiver, you might, like a CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago, you could say, we're going to pepper this dude with 150 targets, and it doesn't matter where he lines up. The guy's going to get open, and he's going to be productive for us. Jalen Waddle probably had to, be used in the slot a little bit more, be used as a deep threat a little bit more. You don't want him necessarily being the high-volume number 1 wide receiver. Well, he doesn't have to be anymore. As I mentioned, Tyreek Hill can be that if he wants to. Waddle can just play to his strengths, right? Get the ball to him in space, get the ball to him down the field. Let him win.
The biggest issue, potentially, is that Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes were a perfect match together.
Seriously.
Because Mahomes has one of the best arms in the NFL, right? The guy can throw the ball 80 yards. The guy can throw it across the field from weird angles, whatever. And he also loves extending plays, just running to space and waiting until somebody gets open. And that somebody is invariably Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce. Can Tua do either of those things? He certainly can throw the ball 80 yards. He just does not have the Mahomes type of arm. And I don't think he has the Mahomes ability to extend plays, to get open, to just sort of buy time until the guy springs open and fire the ball in there. Again, that requires arm strength as well, because you're firing passes into spaces with weird angles and across. You're doing that trigonometry game where everybody else in the NFL is not allowed to do that, but Patrick Mahomes, like, go for it. What the hell? Yeah. We've seen it work too many times. So that's their game. Like, okay, they also exist on the within structure stuff, but if all that is off the table, you're chopping one of the legs out from under Tyreek Hill in terms of what he does so well.
The other thing about Tyreek Hill, though, do you need... I've been describing him from like a stats standpoint. Do you need the stats? Or because, again, the reason why the Chiefs saw more too high coverages than any other team was because of Tyreek Hill and Mahomes, but because of Tyreek Hill, right? And then the Chiefs had to adjust and work the underneath game and all that stuff. If the Dolphins face too high all the time, their running game is going to be that much more efficient, right? They want to run the ball and set it up with play action and all that stuff. So maybe Tyreek Hill doesn't necessarily need the stats. It is really just his presence out there, and it alters the leverage of the defense. It alters coverages. It alters absolutely everything. And I'm going to go back to, if you told me prior to 2017 that Alex Smith was going to lead the league in deep receiving yards one year, we'd think you're crazy. He's the lowest average depth of target, hates throwing the ball down the field, has to see it open. A lot of the Alex Smith, am I describing some Tua stuff here? Low average depth of target, has to see it open. That's Tua, by the way. Tua's not an anticipatory thrower. He likes to see it and throw it. When he throws it, he's accurate.
I'm not saying he doesn't make an impact. I'm just saying that you lose so much if all that other stuff is off the table. Like the Alex Smith, the Tyreek Hill thing functioned because Alex Smith essentially determined that if I look outside and Tyreek Hill has one-on-one coverage, it's an auto throw, right? I'm throwing a go ball in that direction. And it worked. That gave Alex Smith, led the league in deep yards, led the league in passer rating, I think, or passer rating on deep throws, whatever. Became a great deep ball thrower that one year because he essentially had an auto read for Tyreek Hill. Now, one, defenses are different now, and I think teams are defending it differently.
Sure.
Two, again, that's like one great element, but if you miss out all the other stuff, Tyreek Hill is just less of a threat than he was with Kansas City and with Patrick Mahomes, and that is unfortunate.
So where does this put the Dolphins in the AFC?
Well, they're moving in the right direction. I mean, the AFC is now just such a brutal bloodbath, but they're like, this is a move that moves them in the right direction, as is Terron Armstead, as is some of the other stuff they've done, Connor Williams. So Miami's moving, and they're moving in the right direction. They just got further to go because of all these other teams.
It is crazy to me because we've used the term arms race a million times here this offseason. But for every team that's making these moves, other teams are, giving up some of these players, right? So the Chiefs are giving up Tyreek Hill, obviously. A team in the AFC East, the Patriots have done almost nothing compared to what the Bills already coming from a position of strength got better. The Dolphins on paper got better. The Jets on paper got better. They're coming from a position of weakness, but they got better. And you have a team like the Patriots, kind of stagnant. The Chiefs, relative to the rest of their division, stagnant until we know what they do in the draft, which, again, you don't really know until you see them on the field.
They've gone backwards.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you're not first, you're last. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah, but you've actively gone backwards. So you've not only have you moved backwards relative to the people who have taken a step forwards, but you then took a step backwards yourself. You're now 2 steps back relative to where everybody else was. You brought up something before we went live that I think is probably important to at least mention and clarify before we move on to a couple of emails before we end the show.
Yeah.
The difference and complexity of discussing Tyreek Hill and Deshaun Watson as football players and people, et cetera, right? Because, if you listen to the PFF NFL Daily, when we talked about or reacted to Deshaun Watson getting the monster trade to Cleveland and the new contract and all that kind of stuff, right? It doesn't feel good talking about Deshaun Watson because clearly something happened, right? 22 active lawsuits. They made the criminal ones go away. The grand jury decided not to press charges, which is not the same thing as determining innocence. It's simply determining that we don't have enough evidence to prosecute him criminally.
And whether you position it as clearly something happened or not, you would say we still don't officially know that nothing happened because there's 22 active lawsuits. 22
different women have accused him of some degree of sexual misconduct. There are more women that have corroborated some of those things and who haven't pressed charges and all those kinds of things. If you listen to Mina Kimes' podcast with Jenny Vrentes, she talks a lot about the details and all the things. But anyway, the point being, it seems pretty clear that my problem with discussing it is that it seems pretty clear that Deshaun Watson did something not good, that there's some degree of wrongdoing there. But there's also a pretty high likelihood that all of it will go away, right? That they'll be able to pay off, settle 22 lawsuits, the criminal stuff didn't happen, and he'll walk away from all this technically fine. But the court of public opinion versus the actual court. So I think generally it feels weird to talk about Deshaun Watson right now just in terms of football. I think you have to acknowledge what's going on right now and what all these teams immediately decided to jump into as soon as the criminal stuff went away. Now, there's whataboutism, one of these great trends in modern world. Or, well, what about Tyreek Hill? Why are you not up in arms about Tyreek Hill? Because Tyreek Hill, for anyone that doesn't know, was actually convicted or pled guilty to pretty serious, pretty reprehensible domestic battery stuff, right? Choked his girlfriend, punched her in the stomach, a pregnant girlfriend, punched her in the stomach, these kinds of things, some pretty disgusting stuff. Actually ended up pleading guilty to this, and this was the reason why he was, a fifth-round draft pick or whatever, not a first-round talent. And it's like, well, why do you bring that up now? And you were like, is there a statute of limitations to this stuff? I mean, obviously there isn't, in that if you think, Tyreek Hill did a horrible, reprehensible thing and is, probably not a nice person overall because of that. But this happened years ago, and not that you forget about it or you move on from it, but you can't bring it up every time you talk about the guy from now until the end of time, right?
Right.
At least I believe. I don't think that's practical, that every time Tyreek Hill's name comes up, you're like, let's revisit the criminal thing that happened back in 2015 and 2016.
And we won't be able to do it with Watson, once
right.
if he's playing week 1 or week 8 or whatever he's playing.
At some point, we are going to just start talking about Deshaun Watson, the football player, the same way we did with Tyreek Hill, the same way we did with Ben Roethlisberger. At some point, that stuff, you just have to stop bringing it up because nobody wants to hear that every time you bring them up. So that's the reason I think that you don't spend the entire time saying, well, how can we talk about Tyreek Hill, the player? We have to talk about how he punched a pregnant girlfriend. That's the difference to me, is that this happened a long time ago, and we've done that. We've already talked about it, right? We've discussed the fact that that's a disgusting thing to have done, and you should be thinking twice about whether you want to have that guy associated with your organization and all those kinds of things. The Deshaun Watson thing is happening now, and the frenzy to sign him was happening now. And this stuff is still active, by the way. Whatever about Tyreek Hill stuff, they were settled years ago. The Watson stuff is active right this second. So I think it's right to bring it up and just say, look, just be aware of what he's accused of doing and what so many different people have accused him of doing. And maybe all these lawsuits will go away. But when, who is it? Somebody made the phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah. This is a lot of smoke, right? Now, what are the chances that there's no fire at the end of all this?
But again, no matter how you position it, it's active, as you're saying. It is an active situation. It is fair, I think, in this particular case to say Tyreek Hill does not come without risk because he does have a history in the past. It did pop up a couple of years ago, even though that ended up, whatever happened, nothing came of it, but, there was smoke a couple of years ago as well, beyond the old allegations. So there is risk involved as well. So there's, that something could happen again, or that, he might not be on the field for whatever reason. To this point, Tyreek Hill's been available for the Chiefs, though. But, to your point, if every time we talked about a player, we had to go back through his history, whether it's Joe Mixon or whoever it is, you just can't do that.
Right. But I just wanted to make the point of that's why there's a difference between the two. I think it's absolutely right to be talking about the stuff surrounding Deshaun Watson right now and what he's accused of doing. And I don't think the Tyreek Hill thing is the same simply because we've done that already. We've had that conversation years ago, 7 years ago or whatever it is.
I just know that there's also people on the other side of the coin who anytime anybody's name comes up who has however checkered of a past, they do feel the need to bring it up over and over again.
And that's fine.
That's their prerogative.
You can listen to their podcast.
Yeah. Fair. Got that out of the way.
A couple of emails that came in. Let me see. So somebody has given us a double joint, a Kenny Pickett with the double jointed hands, right? They've grown. They've gone 8.5. They're now 8 5/8. So he grew an eighth of an inch.
Huge.
Between the combine and his pro day. This is from Matthew C. has said, I like the people who started to send in emails like this. Hi, Sam and Steve. Insert prerequisite pandering here.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start writing my own pandering at the start of these emails when people do it.
Love the show. Great. Favorite podcast.
I don't know what on earth Kenny Pickett is talking about with his double jointedness making his hand small. I have one double jointed hand, and it measures a full ½ inch bigger than the other hand, even though they're identical in size. Baby hands is just making things up. Have a nice day.
Wow. So we think Pickett might be in the 7s.
Well, so I think his issue, right, is the double jointedness. I don't even know if that's the right term. I think what he is he's one of those weirdo people whose thumb bends at like right angles like this, right? Instead of like, see my thumb bend straight out, his like at that knuckle
like
joint.
when you flex it, it gets like super.
So at that knuckle joint,
bendy.
his bends like all the way at right angles. So when you spread it out like this to measure
it's
here
too
to
bendy,
here,
and you get the pinky to thumb, and the thumb's down here, and you're losing some thumb.
Exactly. So when you measure here to here, his is getting shortened because this is bending the wrong way.
You like 7.5 inch hands?
Look, they're not large. I haven't done the measurement.
How did we not track down Kenny at the combine and at least do that?
Just put mine up to him and said,
I did that with Brandon Allen a couple years because Brandon was the first guy that did the massage and the stretch. I was like, I gotta.
You must have made Brandon Allen feel so bad when you put your giant meat hooks up.
I
next
had to do it
his.
because it was like a story at the time, and we were meeting up with them, and I was like, Brandon.
So I think, but I don't know that that's double jointedness. I think that's just having one of those weird, just having one of those weird thumbs, but it's costing him distance.
So it's just the too much thumb flexibility here.
Too much thumb flexion is our problem here. I think it's a mislabeling problem rather than a conspiracy theory.
By the way, I just want to remind all the people, appreciate everybody that's watching live here on YouTube. This thing is cooking right now, but because it's cooking, we're going to give you guys 25% off any PFF subscription using the promo code NFL Pod. This is just for today and every other day in podcast, but NFL Pod, 25% off any PFF subscription over at PFF.com. Edge, Elite, doesn't matter. Get the fully unlocked mock draft simulator, data and grades for the entire 2021 season, actually every NFL season back to 06, every college season in our college subscription back to 2014, all the locked contents, the draft guide, the whole deal. NFL Pod, 25% off over at PFF.com.
I will also say, continue to email us in stuff, right? Send us in stuff. Twitter, you can get us on TikTok as well. And I believe, see, look at that. Tyler created us a little graphic.
That is beautiful.
Email NFLpodcast@PFF.com. The Twitter handle is @PFF NFL Pod. And the TikTok handle @PFF NFL Podcast.
TikTok's going to grow here. Let me screenshot that. That's a great little logo here.
Yeah. So good work, Tyler. Created that little graphic for us today. So send us in these things because they are how we create content in this, particularly this Wednesday show. One more email somebody sent us in. Essentially saying, actually, we had a bunch of people talking about the pitching speed stuff, right? Some guy invoked cricket. There's no chance Sam does not hit 60 miles an hour.
Of course you picked this email.
60 miles an hour is not even 100 kilometers an hour. In cricket terms, slow bowlers who bowl round arm are around 100 kilometers an hour. Pitching should be no issue. 65 miles an hour should be the challenge. That was from Declan McDermott.
I forget where I was. It might have been Omaha in AAA. They had the gun.
The tally going.
I want to say they had the gun calibrated to kilometers per hour. So we were all throwing like 150,
120,
151. I think it was in the 140s, 150s. Is that the right adjustment?
Sure.
But yeah, I was like sitting 149 to 153 or something like that.
Must have felt good those days.
Yeah. And there was another gun that was just awful. It was miles per hour, but it was like 6-7 miles.
Yeah.
We were all throwing 99 to 102 one series in Salt Lake. It was amazing.
I'm getting the other side of the argument. As well.
Sorry.
This one from Glenn McCullen says throwing 60 is way harder than you think, Sam. I would donate $100 if you hit 60 and $250 if you hit 70. I mean, look,
I'd probably throw in 250 if you hit 70.
I'm guaranteeing that the number starts with a 6. Even I think 70 might be above what I'm aiming at here.
Oh man, I need to adjust my charity drive to watch Sam throw.
Yeah, you should just do that. Now, this one, the actual email for a topic. Neil Sharma Hey guys, love the podcast and the charity work you guys are doing and have done already. PFF was notoriously low on Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, both of whom have become franchise quarterbacks. Malik Willis is higher on PFF's board than both Herbert and Allen were. Allen was number 35, Herbert was 30, Willis is 25. PFF is very good at many things, quantifying things that are valuable and things that are unsustainable, distinguishing between good play and good stats, offensive line, defensive line grades translating to the NFL level. Is it possible that your one kryptonite is the strong-arm, toolsy quarterback that PFF is low on, but becomes a good player anyway? Does this signal success coming from whoever drafts Malik Willis? I think this is actually an intriguing thing now.
Yes, I want to. We have to get out of here in 5 minutes, but I want to spend more time on this during draft season because can you put that back so I can read it? I want to reference where we had everybody on the draft board. We had Herbert and Josh Allen as late first-round picks.
Yes.
I would argue that their college pedigree, so to speak, was stronger than Malik Willis's. Their college pedigree. Justin Herbert at one point was our QB1. There was a point after his sophomore season where he looked like the future QB1. He just didn't develop in college. There was a point after Josh Allen's 2016 season where he was a top 10 pick for us. He just didn't progress in 2017 and really regressed when he lost some borderline NFL caliber players. So that was kind of where Herbert and Allen landed. I would argue that Willis's history is not as clean as a passer. And the one thing that Willis has going for him, it's not just the strong arm. It's the fact that we've seen NFL offenses since 2018 now build around a quarterback's rushing ability more than ever, from Lamar Jackson to Jalen Hurts to Taysom Hill to Josh Allen, really. So Willis being as high as 25, to me, if we're ranking him 2 years ago, he's probably like a mid-second round pick with accuracy issues, with maybe even lower, with accuracy issues, without an elite PFF passing grade, without some decision-making questions or whatever it is. I would argue that Allen and Herbert is the reason why Willis is as high as he is on the PFF draft board. And forget the board, Renner's doing much of the work there. Why I'd be willing to take Willis inside the top 10 to 15 if I'm a real QB needy team. I wouldn't be doing that a couple years ago if I hadn't seen teams truly build around a quarterback's rushing skill set plus the development of an Allen and a Herbert.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that so everybody's learning here, and this is not a static thing. The landscape changes every year, and one of the trends in recent years is that these toolsy, big-arm quarterbacks have a really good track record of working out, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, these guys with the skill set have actually got a great strike rate recently. Now, Daniel Jones, not so much, but it's not perfect. But the point is, the entire league, us and everybody else, is now looking at a guy like Malik Willis, who has all of those tools, and saying, is he the next one, or is he the next bust? Is he the next guy that doesn't? Like, was this a trend where we got 3 or 4 of these guys in a row that all panned out and we can explain it for reasons other than this? Or has something fundamentally shifted in the way the NFL works, that this type of player now has a better shot at success than they did several years ago? And I think we're sort of hedging in that direction a little bit, right? Of moving him up draft boards. And I think the rest of the league is probably as well. But it's still an unknown. We don't know. That's what the whole thing is. That's what the interesting part about the whole thing is.
Look, I know that I know it's easy to just look at, say, hey, toolsy quarterbacks are figuring it out. Some of the data that we don't necessarily have at the time that we that we know is prevalent around the NFL is off-field and personality testing and psychology testing and all that stuff. And basically everything I've heard is Allen and Herbert crushed a lot of those things for whatever that's worth, right? So is there the missing piece in this whole thing is you had toolsy quarterback who, whatever these other data points are, really, really liked them, really pushed them to the forefront, saying these guys are going to get better, or they have the work ethic, or whatever that looks like, right? So I don't know where Malik Willis stands with this. I don't know how last year's quarterbacks really stand with that, Trevor Lawrence or any of those guys. So I think part of the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert analysis is teams also believed in them quite a bit as people and quarterbacks to develop and all that stuff, and it has worked out so far for those guys. We said this the opposite last year. Like, did their development hurt Mac Jones? because Mac Jones looks nothing like Herbert and Allen. And Mac Jones had an excellent first year. You could still argue his ceiling, but he had an excellent first year being the average-armed, accurate, good decision maker for the Patriots that he looked like at Alabama. Sound good? Mm-hmm. All right, it's a great show. I wish we could keep going. I know it's cooking here on the YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody tuning in. So for everybody that's watching right now, you're going to tune in tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. We'll be live on YouTube again.
It's very presumptuous of you.
Yeah, but if I tell you, you'll listen.
I think you asked them, like.
Oh yeah, we asked that you
will
come join us.
Yeah.
Just join us tomorrow morning, 10:30. We love when we have a good group live. Maybe we'll talk to the chat a little bit more tomorrow. Be a little bit more interactive. But come join us tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. It'll be a little bit longer show. We'll get into some team needs coming out of the draft. I think
we won't have a hard out after an hour.
We won't have a hard out. It was just a lot of stuff going on here. So anyway, we thank everybody for tuning in.
I may or may not wear a hat.
We'll have a PFF NFL Daily where we can further react to stuff later on today. The emergency dailies are doing great. Appreciate everybody for watching those, and send me those screenshots that you're subscribed to both the Daily and this PFF NFL Podcast. I'll be giving away an Edge subscription tomorrow. That's also why you need to tune in on YouTube or in podcast land. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. See you tomorrow.